Hey, this is David Plotz, CEO of CityCast. I have a favor to ask before we get to today's conversation. We're doing our annual listener survey, and it would really help us out if you took it. And even if you took it last year, we'd be grateful if you took it again, because we can't use last year's data. Please go to citycast.fm/survey to take the survey. It's only 7 minutes long, we know, because we timed it. That's citycast.fm/survey. And when you take the survey, you'll also be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card and CityCast swag, that great CityCast swag. citycast.fm/survey.
Today on CityCast Houston, how would a pause in federal funding impact our city? Also, egg prices are skyrocketing, and what is a Houstonite? Abby Church of the Houston Chronicle is here, so let's jump into the news. It's Friday, January 31st. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Hey, what's up, Abby? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, too. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Of course. Excited to chat with you. It was a wet and wild Thursday, so I'm glad we've made it now. A random storm that just moved through, but hey, we're good. It's Friday. It's been a long week, and I want to start with a story that everybody's talking about. Did you get a chance to read Judge Lina Hidalgo's self-written essay in Vogue recapping her wedding in the Philippines?
Yeah, no, I did. It's always super cool seeing anyone from Houston like featured in Vogue, too.
Yeah, that was so cool. Okay, I have two takeaways, all right? Look, I'm equal opportunity. I am going to make fun of things when I see it. It doesn't matter, political affiliation. But in that essay, Judge Hidalgo, when she was talking about her wedding gown, it was made by a Houstonian Project Runway winner, Chloe Dow. But in the essay, Abby, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Judge Hidalgo was catching so much flack for this. She called her a Houstonite.
I did see that.
Oh.
I did. No, it's so funny too. I know like everyone sees that and like haha and everything. Honestly, as someone who's only been in Houston a year, I probably would have made the same mistake. But also it's one of those things where like, I know. But no, I mean, it is Houstonian though. So I don't know. It is funny though.
Yeah. And the other takeaway, and this is a more serious one,
right.
She's been very open about her mental health treatment and struggles. She mentioned that she had a massive bill for her mental health treatment, and even a friend had to help and step in and pay for it. And it just made me think, like, Judge Lina Hidalgo is a public figure, and I'm going to assume she is earning a nice salary as the judge, right, of Harris County. And if she's having issues paying, costs for treatment, like, imagine what normal people are going through. And I was just heartbroken to just think about that and how many people are deferring treatment because of that, right? And it just goes to show our healthcare system, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, exactly. Especially like as someone who has had those struggles in the past too, the healthcare for that is just so expensive. And I think when you're looking at like just the way that society has begun having those conversations a little bit more than we've had in the past, I'm hoping that maybe the like money aspect of that gets a little bit better. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's just a little bit extraneous there.
Yeah, very, very. It's tough. It's so tough. Hey, by the way, one last thing with Judge Hidalgo. I don't know if y'all saw this or not, but the Texas Attorney General's office dismissed charges against two of Judge Hidalgo's former staffers nearly 3 years after those staffers were accused of steering an $11 million COVID-19 vaccine outreach contract to a preferred vendor. So that was the big update from that case. I've linked everything about that as well in the show notes.
It's such a crazy case too. And especially with all the transition in the DA's office and trying to figure out, okay, how is this going to be handled? Is it going to be handled differently with OGG than it will under the new DA, Sean Tier? It's so fascinating to watch.
Yeah. By the way, the whole essay, I've linked it in our show notes. If you want to read it, shout out to Judge Hidalgo getting in Vogue. That is wild. I never thought I would see a elected official in Vogue recapping a wedding, but here we are. It's 2025, Abby. We made it.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible, especially in Houston.
Yeah, let's get to our big stories of the week. You kick it off because I have no idea what is going on right now with President Trump and the federal funding, the grants. Are they on pause? What is happening? Recap all this, and how is this impacting our city? What happened?
You know, you and me both with that lack of knowledge and holy whiplash of that whole situation, right? First, we have them wanting to pull all the grants, and then they come out and say, actually, it's only for these specific things that we want to pull the funding for. And then, of course, we have the news later in the day that they are pausing the effort altogether. So it was just quite a news cycle. But when you're looking at the situation itself, the Trump administration put out all these executive orders, right? I know obviously those have been making the headlines. And the grant situation, when you're looking at that, there are so many things in government, not just federal government, but local government that is supplemented by grant funding, right?
Mhm.
So, of course, when the Trump administration puts something like this out, of course, it is going to cause mass panic for everybody because all of these things are now hanging in the balance, right? So, when you're looking at the situation in Houston, when I was asking questions about it, it's kind of hard to tell what exactly is going to be impacted if that is something that does end up happening. But Houston specifically, there are two different departments that I can foresee being pretty significantly impacted, and that's the health department and that is the housing department. And those are the two that see a large majority of their operations funded by federal grants.
Wow. Isn't that wild that we're not sure exactly how much is coming from federal funding, where this money's coming from state? Like, that is just how, I guess, tied up government is. And I don't know, like, I'm confused on this because we should know, like, hey, this program will be impacted because we are getting funding from this. But there were a lot of questions, and I think there was a lot of fear as well of like, we don't know. And that's the thing with this administration, just a side note, seems like it is all about creating fear right now and no comfort.
Right. And like kind of bouncing off your point too about the lack of knowledge on this, when I was questioning some city officials about, okay, how much grant funding does the city of Houston receive? There's not necessarily a database or a system where all of that information is kept, right? So all of that information is tracked by individual departments. So departments know how much grant funding they're getting, but the city as a whole, there's not really an easy way to determine what exactly is going to be impacted.
Abby, were there any programs that were off limits that for sure were not going to get a pause in funding if that order was executed?
You know, that is another thing that is really hard to tell, too. I mean, when I asked the Whitmer administration about it, they basically were telling me that they were going to go over all the executive orders and try to determine impact. But right now, it's just pretty much a big question mark. But I guess when you're looking at if it was a complete grant pause, I know the Trump administration did come out and say that the pause in funding wasn't necessarily sweeping, and they were focusing on making sure DEI efforts weren't happening. Anything that supports the Green New Deal wasn't happening. And this is the one that was kind of confusing to me because I think it can be, and like, it's definitely up to interpretation, right? But anything that undermines national interest. So I'm not entirely sure what the Trump administration means by that, but when you're looking at the specifics of DEI efforts in Houston, the one that I can think of just off the top of my head was the mayor's office for people with disabilities.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All they have to do is literally just put out like, hey, this is exactly what we mean, right? Like as an administration, and be very detailed instead of just like, hey, guess what? We're just going to create fear. And that is so frustrating when you could literally just calm all the fears, let people prepare, let programs prepare, let these organizations prepare that, all right, we will be impacted by this. Now let's figure this out, right? Because we are here, unfortunately. By the way, the pause is still going on. Is there a chance that the pause will be removed? Like, what's the future of this?
I am not entirely sure. I think the big thing that people are grappling with right now is if this is something that the administration feels comfortable with doing, what else are they going to do? I've seen a couple of those questions just circulating online, but yeah, no, that's all a big question mark.
Yeah, all a big question mark. And it's not a question mark. I don't know if you saw this or not, but egg prices, they're not coming down anytime soon. Have you bought a dozen of eggs lately?
No, I actually haven't. I feel like I have to go closely examine that when I'm at HEB on Sunday too. I'll do my little run and I'll be able to chat with you about it a little bit more.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to start a GoFundMe for you because they are expensive right now.
Wait, okay. How much are you seeing egg prices right now? Like, have you gone to different places to see?
Yeah. Okay. So I was at Kroger the other day and it was right under $6. Okay. For like just a normal dozen of eggs. All right. Not like the organic, brown, cage free. all that's no, just a dozen of eggs was about $6. That is unreal. And it's not coming down anytime soon, the prices, because there are 8 different bird flu outbreaks right now across multiple states. And there have been over 21 million egg laying chickens who have died from the bird flu. And you have to, get that stock back up. This is crazy, Abby.
Bird flu is no joke, too. I wrote a story a
No.
couple years ago, like just kind of adjacent to egg prices, but also not. But when Thanksgiving came around, they were having a hard time with getting turkeys on Thanksgiving tables just because of like that bird flu outbreak too, It's so interesting how like something like that too can just like have the big wide sweeping effect, kind of like a wave,
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about how this is going to impact restaurants, right? Because restaurants use a lot of eggs, and
right.
traditionally they buy them at very low prices, right? Because they're buying it in bulk, they're buying the wholesale price, all that stuff. And now pricing has gone up for them as well. So how's this going to impact restaurants? Like, how much of a rise in goods are we going to see when we go out to eat, right? Are we about to feel that as well?
Right. No, that's the whole thing. Like, you're going to get in your omelet at a diner.
I
Like,
know.
how much more is that going to be? Going out to brunch is already super expensive too. And you factor in all the fun drinks, all the food.
Yeah, I'm thinking about families, right? Like lower income families who are maybe getting impacted already with any kind of federal pauses in food aid, right? And now you've got the egg prices going up. This is heartbreaking. This is heartbreaking. And look, there's a lot of challenges right now for this administration. And while they're, telling everyone to accept buyouts and federal positions, I wish they would just focus on like, hey, how can we get egg prices down? How can we help the everyday man? Like that was a big thing during the election, right? We're going to help everyone with inflation. We're going to help people with this. And I understand there are things that you can do and you can't do, like, but it would be nice to control the bird flu, right? That would be cool. Like maybe you could do that.
We're very passionate about this, Raheel. How many eggs are you buying a week?
We eat a lot of eggs, Abby.
Do you?
I've talked about this on the podcast before. I put cold egg whites in my coffee. So this is
actually?
I actually do. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah, people put egg whites in their drinks, right? Like when you make a drink. So,
yeah, no, that's true. I think I've had cocktails before that have had egg white in them, but coffee, that's the first time I'm hearing that.
Cold coffee, though. It has to be cold. You can't put hot coffee in egg whites. Because
it'll cook it, right?
Yeah. You just go cold coffee, get your protein fix. I know. I bring this up every time. And every time I get emails and messages on Instagram, like, what is wrong with you? Try it before you knock it.
That's the one sticking point on this podcast. Like, Raheel puts egg whites in his coffee.
Look, there's no place like Texas, except when it comes to skiing or my personal favorite, snowboarding. And I get it, you're heading to snowier pastures, but before you leave Texas, grab one last taste of the real Texas in Amarillo. If you love a good Texas road trip like me, then Amarillo needs to be on the top of your list because it's quirky, wild, western, and a spontaneous city. I mean, where else can you spray paint a Cadillac, cruise down Route 66, and even find that perfect cowboy or cowgirl hat for rodeo season? Here's a pro tip for me. If you're driving to a ski destination, make sure you stop at Palo Duro Canyon right outside of Amarillo and hike in the second largest canyon in the US. Heck, I think you should stop on the way back as well because of how amazing it is. After that hike, be sure to carb load on some Tex-Mex and then pop into a speakeasy in Amarillo and grab a well-deserved drink. The mountains may be calling, but Amarillo will make you proud to call Texas home. Start planning your trip to Amarillo at visitamarillo.com and après ski into the real Texas.
Oh, such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles, plus a professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
All right, Abby, let's get to our most overlooked story. And mine is the Coalition for the Homeless of Houston-Harris County conducted their annual point-in-time count across our area to determine the number of people experiencing homelessness. Now, this is an important year for it because this number is going to give us an insight on how much homelessness and the unhoused community was impacted by the end of federal pandemic relief dollars. We've heard so much about those dollars impacting so many different aspects of our lives and programs, but this is the first year where we're getting a really good snapshot of how much those are not only impacting the community, but also the programs that, certain organizations can offer to the unhoused community. This is a big number every year, Abby, that the city and everyone looks forward to because we want to see how we're handling such an important issue that's impacting such a vulnerable population.
Right, right. And this was something that was my most overlooked story, too. I was actually out with volunteers this week, just watching the point in time count to see how it works. It's my first time. And it is just so fascinating. And I know when we were looking at reports last year, one of my colleagues, she covers housing at the Houston Chronicle, but her name is Rebecca Schutz. And she had written this story last year in regards to whether or not the homeless numbers were going to spike in Houston just because of the depletion of funds that we are seeing and how that is leading to like a little bit less help than people were getting before, right? And they were going to be anticipating a spike. And I was asking volunteers when I was out on Tuesday, do you guys still anticipate that trend coming true this year? And of course, we won't know until the spring. That's when those numbers are finalized. But they are still anticipating that we are going to be seeing this spike. And of course, this is going to be pretty consequential too, as we're seeing a lot of plans from the city come through. One thing that I can think of just off the top of my head is Mayor John Whitmire's homeless plan that he introduced back in November. So it's definitely going to bear some weight to that.
Yeah, he's been very focused about this. And, even during the winter storm, talked about like, hey, we have to get more of the unhoused community into shelters. We have to figure this out. And he's been very vocal about that. So, I'm curious like how this is going to look because he, as you mentioned, he introduced it in November. So he was almost through with his first year. So now we'll see like ending year 2, what does this look like? By the way, last year, that number did go up versus 2023 by 10 individuals.
With the count, I know like the advocates are still predicting that there is going to be a spike, but especially as it pertains to the plan too. I mean, I think when you look at that, some of those parts are still up in the air too, because when Whitmire pitched that plan in November, this is also a story by my colleague Rebecca, but the way that they pitched it, it was part a mission statement, it was part a fundraising pitch, and then it was also a call for legislative changes, right? So when you're looking at the funding of this plan, the city is estimating that they're going to need about $70 million a year to get it done, right? The city has committed $25 million to that pot. I know there are a couple other tax districts that have said that they're going to be giving some money. Downtown Houston said they're going to be giving some money, but part of that press conference in November was asking the county to contribute another $20 million to the effort, which we don't know the status of that right now. So only time will tell.
All right. So we're going to keep our eye on this one and see what that number looks like, see what programs are available. It's such an important story here in the city of Houston. And, we've done a very good job as a city working with so many coalitions, the groups to offer solutions for the unhoused community. And you remember that big story a couple of years ago about how Houston was one of the leaders. And I believe the headline was like, they solved the unhoused population crisis, right? So now all eyes are on Houston.
I think that's the fascinating part to me too. Houston has always been heralded as this model for addressing the problem, right? But you still see a lot of frustration, whether that is from just average residents or public officials.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass f- So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
All right, Abby, let's end this with our moment of joy. What do you got for me?
I have a pretty big one. So anyone who follows me or knows me closely knows that I am a big cat girly. I have a cat named Walter. He is the light of my life. And a couple weeks ago, we expanded our family and we got another kitten. Her name is Lola. She is a little chaotic ball of energy. It has been kind of hard getting used to the energy around the house, but it is so much fun. So fun.
Yeah, as a parent, when we had one child, we're like, yeah, we could do this. And then when the second one joined the family, we're like, oh, this is hard. Is that similar with cats? You're like, one is easy, but when you introduce two, it's just too much?
I don't know if it comes down to having two cats or having one that is a little bit lower energy level. I think Walter's around 5, and then Lola, she is only, I think it's about like 15 weeks old right now. So she is just all energy all the time, and seeing them kind of interact, and he is just kind of overwhelmed by everything that she is bringing to the table, and her zooming around and constantly wanting to play. And he's like, I just want a nap, man. I just want a nap.
Gosh, yeah. Props to you, man. Having a small animal or a young animal is so much hard work. Our dog, Bane, he's 12 years old. Okay, he's an old man, but we got him when he was 6 weeks old.
Right.
And my wife put me in charge of like taking care of him, and I still have nightmares about that. You know what puppies aren't good with? Human interaction at that age. They're like, I'm just going to wild out. That's it. So props to you and Walter as well for surviving this right now.
I know. No, I mean, and she's so much fun too. I feel like I'm bagging on her a little bit too much. I love this kitten. She is so much fun to be around. She's so cute too, but it's so funny. There are so many things where like, I don't know, you just watch her and she's kind of learning the world a little bit. And she's also kind of learning how to be a cat. And she's looking at Walter like, hey man, what do I do in this situation? But it's also like, they formed a little sibling bond, which is so cute and so heartwarming. And they have also formed an alliance to get me to do things that I don't want to do, like feed them extra treats or wake up in the morning or let them out in the apartment always. So
oh, man.
It's funny. That's a good time. But what about you? What is your moment of joy for this week?
My moment of joy is that season 2 of Mo is out on Netflix. And of course, season 1 was all about the celebration of Houston, iconic places, what people go through in our cities, especially the immigrant community. And Mo did such a great job of this. But Mo Amar is back with season 2. And this time, I don't think it's going to be a big celebration of H-Town as it is going to be a story about the immigrant experience, because Mo is now in Mexico. He has been deported. All right. Spoiler alert. I know, I'm sorry I gave it away, but he is now in Mexico and trying to work his way back into Houston because he has an important immigration hearing as a Palestinian. So this is going to be interesting. And I think it's going to shed some light on what people are going through. And it can't come at a better time so we can learn about what people are going through in our community. So I can't wait to watch this. Mo did such a great job reflecting our city, our people, our culture in season 1 that I am hyped up for season 2 on Netflix.
I am super excited for it too. It's so funny because I have not actually watched the show before you mentioning it, but I'm looking at it. I have like my little Netflix tab pulled up right now. It looks like it is super good. I'm going to have to add that to my list. And you're totally right too. Like, what a time to have this post.
Yeah, such an important conversation to have. So I'm watching that and I am hyped for that. Shout out to Mo for being such a representative of the city and putting on for the city at all times. Abby, that was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for talking about so many important topics and ending the week on such a high note.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. As always, I always appreciate it. So much fun too.
That was Houston Chronicle's City Hall reporter, Abby Church. I've linked all her work along with the stories we talked about today in our show notes. Hey, before we end the week, it's a new year, so we need new data. We're conducting our annual listener survey so we can make the podcast even better. It takes about 7 minutes to complete the survey, and then once you do, you'll be entered to win a $250 gift card. And yes, even if you took it last year, I need you to take it one more time. So please click on that link in our show notes to take our annual listener survey. Thank you. That will do it for this week here on CityCast Houston. Our producers this week were Selena C.A. Reynolds, Lizzie Goldsmith, and of course, Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editors this week were Natalia Aldana, Lizzie Goldsmith, and Brooke Lewis. Our executive producer is Laura Isensee, and I'm your host, Raheel Ramzanali. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos. We'll be back on Monday to learn from State Representative Gene Wu on his game plan for the Democrats in the Texas House. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new.
Egg whites and coffee is crazy.
It's so good.
That's crazy.
Try it. It's so good. You put egg whites, cold brew as well, oat milk, a little bit of HEB Mootopia, and then a little lavender syrup. You're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, barista. I see you.
Oh, yeah. I got a whole barista. I got the whole little section set up.
So funny.